In every story of love, there is a moment when truth becomes heavier than silence. This is the story of two people who carried the weight of blame, trust, and time. A story known as Ilzam Ishq, Akri and Tizar. This narrative unfolds in a small urban neighborhood where relationships grow quietly, away from public attention. Here, two individuals, Arib and Mahira, build a bond shaped by trust, honesty, and consistent communication. They were not extraordinary figures. They had no public life, no spotlight, and no desire for recognition. But their connection carried a simple intention: to understand one another without conditions. For months, their communication remained steady and respectful. Arab valued clarity, Mahira valued patience. Both believed that love, when based on mutual understanding, could withstand distance, pressure, and personal limitations. But the relationship eventually entered a phase where assumptions began to replace conversations. This shift created a space where misunderstandings started to grow and silence slowly expanded. During this period, external pressures began to influence Mahira's decisions. She faced increasing expectations from her family, growing responsibilities, and limited time to express her concerns. Arib noticed these changes, but he interpreted them as emotional withdrawal. This interpretation became a barrier that neither of them addressed directly. Over time, unspoken concerns turned into visible tension. Both individuals believed they were being patient. Both believed they were giving the other person space. But the silence between them created an environment where doubt quietly spread. This atmosphere prepared the ground for the conflict that would follow, an accusation, an ilzam that neither expected but both contributed to unintentionally. The turning point arrived during a conversation meant to bring clarity. Arib asked a direct question about Mahira's recent distance. His intention was to understand what she was going through. Mahira, however, interpreted the question as mistrust. She believed her struggle was visible and that Arib should have sensed her emotional state without needing an explanation. A simple exchange turned into a larger misunderstanding. Arib expressed concern. Mahira heard blame. Mahira tried to explain. Arib heard hesitation. In that moment, the tone of their relationship shifted. A basic disagreement turned into a perceived accusation, even though neither intended to blame the other. Over the next few days, communication reduced further. Both waited for the other to take the first step toward clarity. Neither realized that silence can widen gaps when understanding is already fragile. For Arib, the silence felt final. For Mahira, the silence felt necessary. Both believed they were waiting for the right moment. That moment never came. Instead, the situation resulted in a quiet separation. There were no arguments, no final confrontation, no closing conversation. Only a long period of waiting, the Akri Intizar, where both held on to the hope that the other might return to resolve the misunderstanding. But the wait ended without resolution. Their final connection remained suspended between unsaid words and unexplained actions. This story reflects a common reality in modern relationships. People try to balance personal responsibilities, emotional needs, and external pressures. Communication becomes inconsistent. Assumptions replace clarity. Silence replaces dialogue. The experience of Arib and Mahira shows how quickly stable relationships can shift when emotional transparency is lost. It also shows that misunderstandings do not always arise from conflict. They often grow slowly through small, unnoticed moments. Their experience demonstrates how individuals can unintentionally project stress onto the person they value the most. Mahira believed she was protecting the relationship by staying quiet. Arib believed he was being responsible by seeking clarity. Neither realized that both intentions required open communication, not silence. Their story highlights how final decisions are often shaped not by events, but by the unspoken interpretations of those events. The ilzam did not exist as a literal accusation. It existed in the emotional translation of their words. Their final weight, the Akri Intizar, represents the distance created by two people who cared but could not communicate clearly enough to resolve their concerns. This story is not about blame. It is a reminder of how fragile understanding becomes when communication stops. Arib and Mahira were not wrong. They were simply unable to break the silence that stood between them. Their experience teaches a simple lesson. Conversations, especially difficult ones, must happen before assumptions take their place. Because when silence becomes the only language in a relationship, the final way often ends without closure. Ilzam Ishq, Akri Intizar stands as a quiet reminder that love requires clarity, patience, and the courage to express truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. Only then can relationships survive the distance created by doubt.